continuation of show cause hearing, 11 Jeremy Garden Lane, a cease and desist regarding work done without a permitted upland review area. And because we haven't been here for a month and a half, I think last time we basically delegated that to you to work with the homeowner to figure out, a replanting plan or restoration plan.
It's reported to me that it's been substantially complete. I haven't had a chance to be on the property.
Okay. So should we just continue it until next month, and you can check between now and then?
Sure.
Okay. Why don't we do that then? Tammy, do you need Terry to move his mic toward him more, or do you want it like that, or are you picking up his voice?
Picking up.
Oh, okay. We don't want to lose your wisdom or your words of wisdom. So, all right. Moving on to the new business, Crestview Lake Association in 2024 Crestview Road, application for dredging of channel and Delta Inlet. Mr. Gearing, are you here for that? Or?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you come on up, and I would say sign in, but there's no pad there.
Sign in.
Sorry, folks, we relied on the post office to get our meeting packets, so we have no meeting packets because they never arrived. So therefore, if we're fumbling around a little bit more than usual, that's the reason.
Well,
the floor.
We've been trying to we have Crestview, the Crestview Association pond is off Seymour Road and Crestview Drive. It was actually it used to be Paulson Skating Rink many years ago, and then it was some developers bought it and they installed the pond or dug the pond and sold the lots. And when I got out of the service, I bought one of the lots and two of the lots, and I've been living there since. And of course, there's been a lot of development around Crestview. The Ellerslie project is probably the biggest one, and in fact, I was on this commission and I was chairman when the first retention pond up there on Ellerslie let go, and that's solved some of the problem. And then I understand several years ago it let go again, and it has not been rebuilt, and the town is managing it. We've been fighting with Warren Connors that they did fix one ditch on Crestview, which is adjacent to where my residence is, because there was a pipe that broke up on the street above Crestview, and so they were supposed to clean the ditch, but unfortunately typical Warren, he decided to put in, there's two what look like Hoover dams in the ditch now, and they didn't clean the thing out, so the silt is still in it, but I've got these rock walls that are probably almost up to the ceiling in this ditch now, so I'm waiting to see what's going to happen in the next heavy rainstorm. But anyways, to make a long story short, I have walked the brook that comes from Ellerslie. I have some pictures, and most of that silt is from Ellerslie that's in the ditch. Warren, the townspeople, we've had the town attorney and Warren Connors over there, and they've just said no, we're not gonna, it's not our responsibility. So I'm not sure where we're going to go, but in the meantime, the ditch, which was 3 feet deep, is now about maybe 3 inches, and we've got a big peninsula starting on the end of the ditch now from all the sand. There's just absolutely no place. In fact, the Ellerslie, like I said, it let go a second time, the retention, and the town hasn't rebuilt it, so the water's just passing right through it. Now, half the water, there's a splitter towards the end of the road. There's what they call a splitter, and there's a kind of looks like a V plow. Half the water goes into a stone line ditch that comes down into the end of Meadowcrest, and the other half supposedly went to the retention basin. Well, that's no longer, so now it just kind of runs down on the ground, and it's now into what was the retention basin and on down around to Crestview.
Well, the detention basin did fail at one point, but it was rebuilt. Correct, Terry? And
the first time it was, because I was chairman of the Wetlands Commission.
Oh no, it failed
the second time.
It failed when we were on there too,
It did.
and it was rebuilt at that point. In fact, we even had the applicant the subdivider, I remember him having to use pails to clean up some of the, by hand, some of the silt from the first failure. That was rebuilt, and it was built under engineering supervision.
It doesn't look like it's retaining any water now. It's just solid grass down there. I mean, I've looked at it recently, and Warren Connor said, "No, we have not rebuilt it." So.
Well, no, the applicant did. The town didn't.
Warren Connors would not
the second time,
necessarily know.
The second time they did, or the first time, but I don't know about. I don't know. Well,
yeah, no, it was when I was on.
There's only been one event.
Mm-hmm.
It was under when it was still under the bond by the subdividers, and Mr. Chairman, you were chairman when that happened.
Right, I remember that day.
There's not been a second event, and the first event was cleaned by hand. The entire Black Brook was cleaned by hand under supervision by members of the Seymour football team.
Terry, I was on the Wetlands. I was chairman when the first time it let go.
There was not an Elderslie.
Maybe it's a different detention
yes,
basin
there
we're
was.
talking about.
Yes, there was, Terry. I'm sorry, I beg to differ with you because we had a problem with water that came down from behind. I can't remember the people that owned that lot, but it came down and it put mud into it. Those three of those houses on what's the name of that street that's above Crestview? What's the name?
That's the trench behind those lots on Elderslie, up on the high portion of Elderslie, right, was also done during the subdivision of Elderslie. It was a lawsuit brought on by an individual, and extensive trenching was done by a lot that you own immediately adjacent to Elderslie.
Right.
So that's not to say, however, that I believe that there is silt in the Crestview Pond.
Yeah, and we've been down there before. I remember going down there once on a site visit where we saw how it was silted up, the drainage area, and then the delta into the pond, basically. So.
I believe that siltation happens, like traffic happens, like water happens. Mm-hmm. That I'm very certain that it was not event-based. The Elderslie sand is a very unique type of sand, and one could see that in the Black Brook, and it was all removed by hand. The detention basin was rebuilt, and it is at this time performing as designed. Recently, by the way, you might find it interesting, the subject of a study by the Yale School of Forestry, one of two detention ponds that were studied as to their ability to remove total dissolved solids. And it's an interesting study, and I'd be happy to give copies of it to anybody who's interested in it. Mm-hmm. What the Elderslie Pond is happening, detention pond is happening, is that there's a lot of tree growth up in it, and it was supposed to have been mowed to prevent that tree growth. And we've identified that as a maintenance problem, that we need to get that woody debris and roots out of their pond, and it needs to be regularly maintained. And so we've identified that to the finance department as a target to be maintained. As we have a couple of other detention ponds associated with the Toll Brothers subdivision, also need to be maintained by the town. However, I think your point is well taken, that there is silt in your pond.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
And we may, I think, disagree on where that silt is coming from or how that silt got there. Bob Criscolo has participated in it with a group a couple of years
exactly.
ago.
He was the engineer at the time.
Participated in a few years ago in a study of that entire drainage basin that came to some conclusions that several meetings were held, if you recall. I don't think the town decided to do anything or make any decision.
No, that's right.
But what you have in front of you presently is an application by the association to do some work inside the pond.
Right.
And I think it's properly in front of you, and is a good virtuous project to get done. Just it matters how.
What is the plan? I mean, what area is going to be dredged? Let me just see if I have some of the answers here. What area is going to be dredged? Where the soil is going to be taken? Is that worked out yet, or?
Well, alongside the ditch, when they dug the ditch, they put the spoils as you face the north on the western side of the ditch, and it's about 30 feet in certain places, 40 feet in others. But we were intending to put the spoils, start on the end and work backwards, and just put the spoils right on top of the pond there. The lot to the left is a wetlands lot. It's not buildable. That's owned by Gloria Robinson. Mm-hmm. She actually owns the lots on both sides. Her residence is on one, and the other one is a lot. In fact, she has 2 lots that are unbuildable because they're both wetlands. But there's enough space there, we believe, to put the spoils from the ditch, and just leave them there, let them level out like the other ones did, and then they would stay right there. I think it'd be impossible to try to truck it out. There's either 3 or 4 ditches that they're really just they're kind of hand dug type things that drain the water from the lot that's to the west of the ditch into the ditch. Otherwise, that lot would fill up. If it didn't have those little ditches, it would fill up, and then it would flow into the residence that's west of that particular lot.
So George, from the Meadow Crest Road and its drainage feature that has about 3 different head walls coming into one head wall.
Right.
From that point to the pond is several hundred feet.
Probably about a football field, I would say.
So how much of that football field do you want to dredge?
We want to go all the way down. We want to go into the pond because now we've got an island that's about 60 some odd feet. It's a peninsula because the water has come down the ditch. It's so full now, and it's built a peninsula out there. I have a couple pictures that haven't been up close to it.
I think you're the only one with a boat on that.
What's that?
You're the only one with a boat on that.
Well, I made a mistake of getting out of the boat with waders on, and I went almost up to my waist. It kind of reminded me of that ad with the guy in the desert looking at a car. I looked around, there's nobody around, and I yelled a couple times, but I was able to get out. I just signed it. I mean, this is some of the condition. I'll show you some of that. This is the culvert at the end of Meadow Crest. You can pass that over.
Yeah.
This is what was the start of the ditch. It used to be a wall that has collapsed. The town did recently fix. We're looking from the road. That's the road. We're looking at into the ditch now. The town did come in and fix it, and I went in there myself and we've got a little stone basin to try to catch silt, and that's another picture of it. This is the ditch. And this was taken. That's the ditch itself, and this is taken from my yard, and that's the start of the island. And now this is another picture from my yard, almost in the same location, but it shows you how big the peninsula has gotten. How big the peninsula has gotten. So we'd like to clean the whole thing and clean that peninsula out. It's kind of ruined the pond. It's turning into a swamp. It's nowhere near the depth that it was. I mean, it used to be 8 to 10 feet in the center. Now it's probably maybe 5 or 6. We're never going to get that cleaned out unless we find somebody that's looking for topsoil, and they would come in and take everything out. We drain it and take everything out. But right now, we'd like to get we'd like to get it is literally about 2 inches of water in the, that's why it's full. The whole ditch is full. We used to be able to take a boat all the way down to the intersection of Meadow Crest and Crestview, and now you can't.
Okay, well, it probably makes sense is first you go out there on a site visit and take a look. I haven't been out there in a number of years. I'm sure it's much worse than it was last time I was out there. So, I don't know. Does anyone else have any other questions before we do that? Because we until we see it, that'll probably...
Right, exactly.
give us
Yeah,
perspective
I
we
would
need,
like to
so.
meet you, and we can walk it. I'll show you everything, really.
I guess the only question I have, and maybe it's to Terry, is there some sort of a long-term solution to the problem, or is this just going to be a periodic?
Absolutely not. We see
Silt happens.
Silt happens. If people had bumpers anymore, you would make a good bumper sticker. And we see that, by the way, in the short time that some of us have been here, we've had ponds dredged multiple times, and in multiple areas of town. So, there isn't anything to prevent this. What's important in these activities is to have a good methodology of how to dredge these ponds, what to do with the spoils, and a maintenance plan while it's being done. The length of a football field, you can imagine the amount of time that it takes to do that, is not inconsequential. I mean, it's going to take a long time to do.
Right.
And is the soil around, we'll probably see this when we go out there, but is the soil around this channel sufficiently stable to support something that's...
On the west side it is, it's about 30 feet wide. Beyond that that's the lot number, I'm not sure the lot number, I think it's 23. That's wetlands in there. That lot is not buildable. But there is a nice stable platform, and the people that I've had look at it said that this would be perfect. We'll start at the end, and we'll just work our way back and put the spoils right there, and they'll basically level themselves out. But it's never been dredged since it was dug, and it was dug in 1968, I believe, is when they did. And we've never had a problem till we had with Elderslie. I've lived there since I got out of the service in '69, and we've never had a problem till this Elderslie thing. And actually, Terry, it was the Boy Scouts that was a project with them with pails and little shovels to clean the ditch. So it wasn't a major project because I saw the Boy Scouts.
We're talking about two different things because I was there.
Okay.
However, I think that the issue comes besides, the methodology and the maintenance of it is, you're being asked to take the spoils of dredging and put it on top of wetland soils.
No, it's not wetlands there. That's nice and dry, Terry.
Well, it may be dry,
It's above-
but it
it's
might be
above the
wetland
ditch.
soils.
So
we're going to have to check that.
It's what's there now. It was with the property from the ditch, and that's where they put the spoil. When they dug the ditch, they put it on the bank and they leveled it all out. Mesa Construction did it because I was living there then. So so it's not water. It's nice and dry. It's above the wetlands. Unfortunately, the ditch now is so high that it's fairly close, but it's still not going on that property. That's nice and dry.
So we probably have what we know as UD soils, previously disturbed soils, and is there any wetlands delineation information available?
And what's that?
Is there any wetlands delineation information available?
Let's see.
Does the town map have...
Well, the town has a map here.
Our maps are
This is-
rudimentary.
This is a little view of it. I'll show you where the ditch. So this will show you. This is actually turn this around.
But these wetlands have not
This is the
been
ditch
flagged.
going. This is the ditch going here. The water comes in from here, and it comes in from. It's piped. It's piped in also from the drainage on the streets. But it runs down. That's how it runs. This is the wet. You see the wetlands on that lot. That's how it's going. And you can see the wetlands. It's a little bit, but that's not wet. I don't understand what that's all about there. But that's it. That's what it shows.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you recall other pond dredging projects of this, certainly much smaller projects than this, endeavor. We have used resources that are available through the town,
Conservation District.
the conservation district, and I wonder if we shouldn't get some good advice.
It's free,
We did,
so-
Terry. We did have somebody from
Roman?
Southwest Conservation.
Mm-hmm.
What's I think what his name was.
Roman?
Roman.
Yes.
Yeah. So Roman is familiar with it. He did look at it and said that
Did
he
he
would
produce
walk all through it.
produce any report at all? Do you recall? And if not,
I'd
perhaps
have
we
to
could
look.
ask.
I'm not
Nicole.
sure, but yeah, there was a report that he did recommend the cleaning of the
You probably
ditch.
still have a record of it and just have to update it, so that may be something that's worth following up on. Yeah.
Because that way, your decisions could be founded upon good
Yes.
knowledge.
Scientific reason. Yeah. Yeah, because the other thing we don't want to have happen is you dig the ditch clean and then whatever you take out of it ends up back in the ditch because it just
Well, I mean,
runs
there's
off back
such
into
a
it.
tremendous amount of silt there, Bob, that it had to come from someplace. I mean,
And
it
will
was
keep,
fine.
and it will keep coming.
And Eldersley got away with murder. I mean, no matter what, they got away. They were supposed to form a homeowners association to maintain them, and of course they got out of there before that was none of that was ever established. So there's no home to maintain what they had. But I think if you get out and look now, I don't think you're going to see any water in that area. It's just high grass, unless the town has recently mowed it. When I looked at it a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, it was pretty high grass in there.
I think they could mow. There's so much.
We're
trees growing.
also in a drought, so it's a really hard time to judge whether a detention basin is working or not. It's also hard to judge any pond or lake anywhere
Right.
in most of Connecticut right now about what a normal height would be because it has been so dry. So a lot of these are moot points until we have engineering and a little more information.
Well, I think the plan should be, either you or work with George to talk to the conservation district. In the meantime, we'll schedule for a site visit so we can take a look and see
Oh, sure.
what the situation is, and then we'll continue to talk about this
It's
next
a
month.
great wetland resource, and across the street, there's even a better wetland resource across Meadowcrest,
That's right.
across the street. It couldn't be a better sidewalk, frankly, to see some good, valuable wetland resources working very well.
Okay, then let's continue this till next month, and we'll talk about it once we have a little bit more information in front of us.
We're hoping to try to get this so we can get it cleaned this year rather than wait because we're just.
Hopefully, I mean, unless it gets, October's meeting is going to be right around the corner, so hopefully between talking to Roman and doing a site visit, we'll have a little bit better handle on this for next month.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we'll continue that one. Next time on the agenda, 275 Seymour Road application for after the fact deck addition to residents. Anyone here on that one? Yeah, this is.
I'd be happy to discuss this. We have we responded to a complaint of someone constructing something in the woods adjacent to a rear lot, and what we found is somebody was in the middle constructing a deck. It was finished without benefit of a building permit, and guess what? It's close to a wetland too. We now have a cooperative property owner who can't make it here this evening. We asked her to apply for a permit because we just don't know the worthiness of redemption as opposed to permission. We think that you still need permission, even though you already did it. It is the kind of deck that we talk about at some distance, by the way, from the wetlands. And it is just a pier foundation, so it doesn't produce any threat. There's an area, as we described, previously disturbed lawn area between it and the wetlands, and so we think that this is an appropriate step, but a little frustrating.
So basically something we could delegate to you to administer.
I believe you can.
Okay. Anyone have any problem with that, or? All right, do we have a motion to delegate to Terry? David Dixon moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Jack seconded it. All in favor? David moved. Jack seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, 5-0. You have it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving right along. 18 and 19 Diana Drive, application modification of site plan. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, for the record, John Paul Garcia, I'm here representing Dr. Machine, who's sitting behind me, who's the owner of 18 and 19 Diana Drive. We received review comments about 2 weeks ago on the 4th. We got and they were relatively minor. And we revised them and sent them back to the town 2 days later, if I'm not mistaken, or 3 days later. And it's our contention that the review comments were relatively minor. Bob had asked for some additional on-site detention. We increased the 2 detention areas from one from 60 to 80 feet, and the one at the end of the driveway we added another 60 feet. He wanted some notes added to the drawings, which we did. He wanted a Section 7 information, which we added to the drawing. And that's basically it. There was very little in the way of what I would consider substantive review comments. So you have the and the other thing about this application, if you remember, we submitted this in June, and this is the one that when I talked to Chris the week before the meeting, and she called Bob. Bob never, for some reason, got it. And both Chris and I sent it to her, and thank God that Chris had her emails and her. So we lost July and August because you guys were off, and I didn't get the review comments until
September
the 4th. And while I'm not that upset, my client's justifiably upset because you've got these things for 60 days, and you give us 3 days to respond. And it's kind of unfair to my client. So in this particular case, I'm a little bit more aggressive in saying that, yeah, we did everything you wanted. The changes were not substantive, and we'd like to get an approval.
Did we hear back from Bob?
We have not. I checked with Christine just now, and we have not.
Yeah, I checked with Christine this morning.
I have a question on number 4 on his comment. Perhaps you can speak to it. He's concerned that the amount of earthwork to accomplish your design would trigger the zoning requirement.
And it may, because it's less than 1,000 yards. There's very little earth coming off, but there is. But there's a balance. But that's correct. But it exceeds. It's the area. If you remember, your Section 7 is both material and area.
Well, I'm quite familiar with that.
I know that, and so it does trigger it, and so the drawings that we submitted comply, so that if this approves it, we can make the application to zoning for a Section 7 application, and we don't have to revise the drawings again.
Well, that's fine, and
but there will be a Section 7 app because it does exceed 10,000 square feet and 1,000 cubic yards of disturbance area.
Okay, so I would encourage you to make, that's to a different organization. I would encourage you to make that application in a timely fashion. They cannot approve it unless you get a permit from this agency, but it doesn't mean that it can't be started there.
I understand that, but if it approves tonight, we'll submit tomorrow or Monday, because.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
I understand.
Okay,
I understand that, but
I'm just encouraging you.
I know that, but what I object to, and you've heard me say this before, is what I object to is having 18 renditions of a drawing floating around between here, P&Z, QVHD, and anybody else.
I have a good solution for that.
What's that?
To avoid that. Good design in the first place.
Did I take that as an insult that it was meant to be?
No, it wasn't meant to be.
I know, I'm teasing.
It's a generic comment.
All right.
Very good, Terry. I like that.
I guess I would feel better if we had some sign off from Bob on this. So let's figure out what we can do.
To be honest with you, his comments were relatively innocuous. I mean, he wanted some notes.
Right.
The only
other
comment,
sheet and
the only
some
comment he
drainage.
had regarding stormwater was number one. And as I said, we increased the back. There's two sets of stormwater treatment facilities. There's one in the back of the house and there's one in front of the house. The one in the front of the house we increased from, I think, 7 lengths to 10 lengths, and the one in the back of the house we increased from 60 to 80 feet. And we sent them the copy of the design calculations. We gave 2 to Christine, 1 for Bob and 1 for her. So
I think that I can assure you that the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, if they do have to process a earth removal and fill permit under that section, they do use Bob Criscolo as an engineer to avoid duplication and cost. So in terms of stormwater, it is possible for us to feel that if that's going to be handled. Do you care to speak to number 2 about the increase in the of 4,500 square feet increase in the site clearing, and how that compares to your design? Does your design account for that?
yeah, that's the idea of 1 and 2 both spoke to that. Well, actually 2 is a little bit different, but the idea is we've accounted for the increase in the drainage design. That's been accounted for. And there's also a little twist to this particular lot. My client owns both parcels. And while there's no guarantee, in fact, we joked about combining the 2 until he discovered that he would cut his own throat financially if he did that, because then the mortgage goes from X to X minus 2. Yeah, and the value of the property goes. So we have to keep them as separate properties. But for all intents and purposes, it's one house on 2 parcels. So the total net increase is substantially less than what was originally designed for when we had these lots approved. Now, there's no guarantee we can do that, but we now have
really one house on one lot with an extra lot.
That's correct.
Separate,
so there's no guarantee that will stay that way, but for the foreseeable future, so long as Bob owns it.
Could you imagine a guarantee?
What's that?
Could you imagine a guarantee?
No, not unless you just remove the lot line.
Oh, how about a conservation easement?
Again, I think he'd be cutting this throat. The bank would have a conniption. I think the bank, when he went to mortgages, would have a conniption.
I'm just trying to...
I know, and these are things we talked about.
Yep.
But the bottom line is we have a lot that stands by itself. The detention, everything stands by itself. The only thing on Bob's review comment that we did not do was the bond, because when we go to P&Z for an earthwork permit, the intent was to ask them to roll it all as one bond, because it's essentially the same thing. What we're doing is site work, which is covered by your permit and so one bond should cover both.
I agree. They always rely on the wetlands bond.
But that's what I'm saying, is that's something that can be determined when the permit's pulled. That's why I didn't do it right now, because I don't know what the P&Z is going to ask us for.
Okay, so if you just develop one of the 2 lots, are you then not going to do any of the drainage facilities on the second lot? That's not going to have a house.
There's no reason to. The lot is freestanding. We've approached this as you have one parcel with one house, so we've designed it as a self-contained unit. But in actual fact, it's if only one house gets developed on 2 lots, it's actually a reduction of about 60%, 70% total. Because now, instead of having 100% on each lot, you've got 115% on one lot, and you've got 0 on the other lot.
So basically,
that plan, what we've done...
When Bob looked at it,
yes,
he was aware of the fact that one would be built on one...
I don't think so, because it's not germane to the discussion, Mr. Chairman.
I know, I was just wondering, though...
What he was looking for was this and this. This originally, if you look at the original application, this originally was like this and like this. This was a little bit smaller. This was about 60 feet. We've increased this to 80, and we had 7 units down here, and now we have 10 to account for the increase, because the break in the drainage is about the middle of the house. So we have an increase because of his future. And the reason we show the pool and the deck, he may never build them.
Right.
But
That's fair to do it now.
again, it's better to do it now, and let's get all the disturbance out of the way and be done with it. And the same thing with the turnaround. He may never do this, but we wanted to get it done now. And that's the increase in clearing. I mean, could we have pulled this together a little tighter? Could we have moved this up a little bit? We probably could have played with games and got rid of the 5,000 square feet. But I think it's a disingenuous application at that point. Because when you get out, Terry gets out there and says, geez, the guy's exceeded his clearing limits.
Well, I think clearing limits is very important.
And I don't disagree with it. And he asked for a note that says we'll stake them. We'll stake them. We do this all the time. But like I said, the only comment that Bob had of any substance was numbers 1 and 2, and those we addressed. We gave him increased calculations. We increased the stormwater runoff. But the unit itself is self-contained. If he ever sold the lot next door as a house lot, we could do the same on that. He has no intention of it. That's not what he plans on doing. But you can't, with the lot line still in existence, you really are kind of stuck. You have to treat this as a separate lot. I hope that answered number 2.
Any suggestions, Terry, as to how you think we should proceed? I mean, should we proceed with approving it subject to, the consulting engineer's, confirmation that the revised plans comply with the September 4th letter, or what do you think?
We try not to do that.
I know.
And for good reason. I think that I'm not concerned about Bob's comment number 1, because I think that we're going to get that as part of the if it truly is going to in front of for a fill permit, we're going to get the kind of information then, and but the same engineer, it'll be the so we'll see all that there. I think that you could conceivably accomplish the goals of number 2 by a conditioned approval, making sure that that's done. I think the note in number 3 is easily done by a condition.
But that's already on the drawing. If you read my comment, we added, note number 6 has been added to sheet SP19. Notes have been added to SP19 demonstrating compliance with section 7 of the zoning regs. Number 5 was, he looked for sheet D19.
Do we have that letter? Or?
Yeah, there's a letter that was submitted.
I don't have that. Is it in the file?
No. Oh, hold on. Yeah, maybe. No, I don't see
This was submitted with the drawing. There was a package that was submitted a couple of weeks ago.
Maybe.
No, that's a separate set of drawings.
Okay.
There were 2 copies of the drainage report, 4 copies of the drawings, the cover letter, and a transmittal.
It doesn't look like any of that stuff's in here.
Well, that was hand delivered.
Okay.
My wife actually delivered it.
Okay.
Here's a copy of the letter.
Okay.
In fact, you can keep that as a...
So we can receive that tonight.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm saying you received it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But failing that, we have it now.
9/11. I hand delivered this. This was hand delivered on 9/11.
Okay.
And then the 14s were hand delivered on the 14th. I delivered those. My wife's retired. She's not doing my running around.
Doesn't sound like retirement to me.
So, what does and I haven't looked at the plan. It says notes have been added to sheet SP19 demonstrating compliance with section 7 of the zoning regulations. Is that just saying that you'll file an application and get approval? Or?
No, there's when you go through section 7, it defines certain things that have to be hours of operation, how much material you're moving, how much area you're disturbing, how's the material going to be moved, all this sequence of construction. General sequence of construction, there's a couple of notes that have to be added, there's some calculations that have to be done, and there's some things that have to be met. And so rather than have to reproduce a set of drawings again, we said, okay, Bob questioned it, do it all now at the same time.
So that's what P&Z will be looking for.
And that's what P&Z, that's why these are the same plans that will go to P&Z. The exact same set will go to P&Z.
And you address number 5, I guess?
Well, what does it say there? Which one's number 5?
P19 has been revised and submitted, okay.
Yeah, for some reason he claims he never got that sheet. And both Chris and I sent them to him, but yes, we revised the sheet and we sent it back to him.
Okay, and then it said revised bond estimate will be provided. Did you come up with a number that?
The bond estimate?
Yeah.
No, that's what we were just talking about.
Okay.
We have to come up with a bond estimate for, or we may have to come up with some different conditions for P&Z as part of the Section 7. Mm-hmm. And so the intent was to ask for that bond to cover both wetlands and P&Z, since the operation is essentially the same. Mm-hmm. The Section 7 application essentially covers the site work on this lot.
Mm-hmm. So do you want us to come up with a bond number tonight, or are we...
No, I'll come up with a bond number as part of the estimate.
For TP&Z.
For TP&Z that will cover both wetlands and P&Z.
And how do you feel about that, Terry?
Well, he just said that usually it's the wetlands bond.
Right.
Listen, I think that just as, it's important not to waste resources that we have, either your clients or ours, or yours. So I think that if a set of plans is mature enough to go get both a wetlands permit and a fill permit, that's a good thing. It's why we insist on having the same engineer. We don't want to have anybody pay the engineer, another engineer, to familiarize himself with the issues, come up to any other same conclusions. That's why we keep the same engineer. So too with the bond. It is probably more typical. There are some fill permits that do not involve wetlands, but every fill permit that I know of has relied upon the wetlands bond.
Then I'll provide a bond. I'll give it to him tomorrow.
And if that bond could then be in a form acceptable to both the enforcement officer and the review engineer, we do have a little bit of a heavy foot on a bond, you should know, but you actually get the money back if you do the work. I think, typically it's your role to itemize the work and the cost of the work.
I'll prepare a bond estimate and I'll give it to Terry, and Terry can review it with Bob. And if they have to alter it, they alter it. I know most towns usually add 20%. Whatever we give them, the town usually adds 20%.
Mm-hmm. I can't commit to a percentage, but we'll
it's
see.
Something like that.
We'll see what happens. It's been.
I'll provide the bond.
It's frankly, it's been heavier than that recently, but. But the good news is you get it back. So,
and you don't earn any interest on it in the bank anyway, so it's a difference.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Right? Okay. So, what's everybody think? We can sort of go with an approval subject to, Bob's final sign-off of these latest revisions. Here, at least the biggest issue of which has to go before TP&Z anyway, so therefore they get a second review of the thing by Bob, even if we don't usually like to do it with this many open issues, but it's been lingering for a while now. So
and it's also a pre-approved lot.
Well, that's true too. It was approved once already.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
This is the third go.
Bigger, but it's not. And now it's down to one lot instead of two, for at least for a while.
Good Lord willing, forever.
So, I
guess approving it subject to compliance with or confirmation of compliance with Bob's September 4th letter and a bond estimate that's acceptable to Terry and Bob is probably good enough in this situation, at least for me. So I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I agree with you.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Or?
I agree with you on that.
What if something, I mean, you can always never count on something inevitable happening, but let's say Bob goes out and looks at it and doesn't agree with something. What's the cycle again?
Well, here's we do have. I believe that to answer your question, I think we have the universe of what, to the extent that he would have not being agreeing with something. Okay, and so just to answer that question, the stormwater quality, and number one, the stormwater quality management measures. And we're asking for compliance with the 2004 Connecticut Storm Quality Manual.
Yeah.
I might add, I think you have to do that anyway.
And
Outside
plus,
of wetlands permit.
The full permit will require something along those lines.
So I think that it's covered with concerns about number one. On number two, and this is the most important one for me, because I find that clearing limits are frequently not respected, and it has a big impact on the water that we have to deal with on the site. And so, for me, that's a big downside of number two that I would be mostly concerned about. And it's your testimony this evening that you provided adequate information.
We provided the clearing limits, we provided a note to stake out the clearing limits, and we provided stormwater management to account for the increase.
Okay.
Which is 1A and 2.
And you monitor that or review it, or when it's put
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in terms of number three, the notes about the future saltwater pool. You said you put that note on the plan.
There's a note on.
If it's on there, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, and you've already testified to us that you're going to be applying for a zoning fill permit under our zoning regulations.
Yeah, the notes for that are on
That's
sheet
number
1.
4.
They're all there.
And even if they weren't, if they ask for something more, you'll provide it to them too.
Yeah, and in keeping with what he said, you get a second bite of the apple.
In terms of the typical details, I think that's a ministerial task that we can see to it, easily discern whether or not that's part of the package or not.
Yeah, it's on there.
And then there's the bond. So I believe that the big downside concern, although I think that there's poignant parts to all of this, is number two, and we have the testimony of the engineer, and I imagine we'll be checking that.
Anybody else have anything?
and your bond will reflect that.
One of the components of the bond is clearing limits. The big parts of the bond are in order: clearing limits, erosion controls, earth removal, stormwater structures. Those are your four largest, and that's the order that they usually get installed. You stake your clearing limits, then you go in and clear it. Then you install your silt fence and your erosion control, your anti-tracking pad, your silt fence and hay bales if you need it. Then you go in and you move the dirt around for all intents and purposes, and then you install your drainage structures. Concurrently with that, you're usually doing your foundation. But we're talking about bonding those basically four items. And my gut feeling is that bond for something like this is going to be somewhere around $20,000 or $30,000.
Oh, sure, absolutely. It's in that neighborhood.
It's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood. And if Terry's got a heavy foot on the gas pedal, we can ensure that there will be a premium.
Terry's usually reasonable now. Anyway, all right. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, vote to approve the application subject to the consulting engineer's compliant review of the last submittal, that it complies with the September 4th comments, and establishment of a mutually, well, a bond amount that's acceptable to Bob and Terry for it. So with those conditions and the usual stipulations.
So moved.
David Bixler moved. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Jack seconded? No.
I can't vote on this, I'm the neighbor.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, Josh, I guess you can see on this, okay? So, all in favor? Aye. Opposed,
Thank you.
extensions? Okay.
We'll be in touch
5-0.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing on Cowpath Lane, we'll have that, I'm going to have it.
A path cleared or something?
Oh, no, I'm going to have it bulldozed and brushed. A path isn't going to do it.
No,
If Mr. Bixler will test it.
Yeah, so what we'll probably do, John, is we'll have the site visit on Crestview and we'll have the site visit on Cowpath. We'll probably have to do a Saturday morning because it gets too dark now.
I'll let Chris know as soon as I talk to Dave, and he's supposed to be in touch with an excavator tomorrow.
Yeah, it might not be Columbus Day weekend. We may have to
That's
do it
fine,
the weekend
whatever.
after, but we'll let you know, so, okay?
Tell them not to go too crazy with the bulldozer, okay?
Well, no, I want to go in there and just cut it and chip it. I don't want to put a dozer in it. No.
Keep the root growth.
Keep the roots.
Yes, please. Thank
At
you.
least until we get a building permit.
Thank
And
you.
I'll call you tomorrow about the section. So, thank you guys. Thank you very much.
So 32 Cowpath is continued, and we'll do a site visit on that. Diana Drive is approved, 5-0. And Eckert, which is the 275 Seymour Road, is delegated to Terry. Okay, anything else? Moving on with the agenda. In your packet that you didn't get, you have the Cacuit newsletter, so when you do get your packages, you can read that. I have no idea. Oh, maybe there's a couple here, but you might as well wait and read it when you get it. Enforcement Officer Report. Terry, what kind of problems are we dealing with?
Well, Bob and I are still working on our response to you on the flood issue of on Litchfield Turnpike.
Mm-hmm.
So we owe you that, and we don't have that information
Okay.
for you yet, but we're working on it. Otherwise, when it doesn't rain,
Fewer issues.
you might be interested on an older problematic site that we've had on the Seymour Road. I happened to stop there, and
This 220 Seymour?
yeah, and I found
they've cleaned it up.
well, that was after I stopped and found that the building was open. Just walk in, help yourself to anything that's inside, and that's empty structures this time of year. By the way, it's important for me to get people exhibiting control over the property because I've seen people, street people, break into a house and start a fire on a wood floor just to stay warm. I was very unhappy to find it open to trespass. So I wrote a enforcement letter to the owner and asking him to exhibit some control over his property. And it was later that week that I was about to say lawn was cut, but the weeds were cut down. And he might even have a better chance of selling it if somebody can see the house. The good news is that while we have not received one report from a biologist about the growing trees in the recovery area there, they seem to be growing.
And I know, so they didn't cut that area down. So
Well,
they
thank God. That's the first thing. That's the second thing that my eyes fall upon is that, of course.
Just so you guys know, this was a situation where when they built the house, they sort of clear-cut everything right through all the wetland areas, and then they had come back in and replant the areas in the wetlands. And then the construction, sale, just everything stopped on the property. It's been dormant for a year and a half or so, maybe.
Well, at least.
Yeah, since they last even tried this work on it. So anyway, so that's what we're talking about. It's on Seymour Road, near that.
It's over by the pond, right?
Yeah, near the pond, and it's like we're going here.
East Good
right
River,
across the
it's
street.
across the street.
Yeah, across the street. Yeah. So anyway, just to give you a background on it.
So, I mean, those plants are growing, and all that is good.
Good. Mm-hmm. All right.
I don't believe that, knowing what we know about this, that until that's sold, we will not have any happy endings there. I don't imagine.
Any other problems or enforcement issues?
Pretty stable.
Well, good. Okay. All right, so we'll keep moving on. We're going to skip commission goals, changes, and directions, etc., because I haven't had time to think about it unless somebody else has thoughts. Site visit next. The second Saturday, which is when we would usually do that, is Columbus Day weekend. I mean, we could still do it that weekend, but sometimes people have plans it's more difficult. So we could either move it to the following weekend, do it the first weekend in October, or second or third, whatever is your preference. So, well, probably not the third because that'll be after our meeting.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, so we don't want to do that. Oh, wait a minute, no. 1st of September. Oh, well, no, Thursday is the first day, so we could sneak it in the third.
September.
Well, I know, but October. Yeah,
Just gotta-
yeah. So what are the choices?
17th or the
Well, the 10th is Columbus Day weekend, and the 17th is the next Saturday.
And our meeting is what?
21st.
Our
The
meeting
meeting
would-
is,
the third Wednesday.
meeting is the 21, 2, 3. The third Wednesday is the 21st.
So yeah, so we could either do it 3rd, 10th, or 17th. I don't know.
Earlier is better. If I was going to go the 17th on Williamsburg, Virginia.
Okay, so we'll eliminate the 17th. So between the 3rd and the 10th, what's anybody have any
Either one is
particular
fine for me.
preference?
The 7th,
Doesn't matter.
Is the 10th bad for you, Barry?
the 10th is bad.
Okay, then why don't we go with the 3rd, and whoever can make it, can make it, and otherwise, we'll do it individually.
8 o'clock here?
Yeah, we'll meet 8 o'clock here on Saturday morning, like we typically do during the non-long daylight hours. Okay, so October 3rd. And we have two of them. We have Cowpath and George Garing's Crestview Pond issues.
Yeah.
And we have no minutes to look at because we didn't get our packages, so don't have to do that. Anybody else have anything we need to talk about?
I actually have a request
Sure,
for a
yeah.
site visit. I live down the street, on Acorn Hill. If you were going to go there first, I wouldn't go to Town Hall.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Well,
if there's,
yeah. It doesn't matter which preference. Which way we do it. So. Okay. So which one do you want to do first? I'm sorry.
Crestview. 'cause
Crestview
I'm
first.
Yeah.
Okay.
almost bicycle there.
I can walk there. I have walked through the woods there.
Okay, so Crestview and then Cowpath will be the plan. We Chris will send out an agenda, an order of the site visits anyway. But so in case somebody runs late, they just catch up with us at the site visits.
At Crestview, the pond is surrounded by private property.
Yeah, I guess with the drainage ditch, which is hold on.
You went to Crestview.
It's at the north. It's at the south end. Then.
Yes.
You probably want to meet at that head wall that has all the pipes. It's a stone head wall.
That's tall as this broom.
No, that's another one.
That's another one. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because that one would probably be easy to find. We'll
Meadow
when you
Crest.
get your package, you'll have the map in here. I'll ask Chris. Well, no, we'll be all coming from here. Oh no, but you won't.
I'll find you. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
that big a neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
It just-
And there'll be 4 cars at 8 o'clock in the morning, or 3
Right.
cars at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we'll figure out where.
So here at
8, and then we'll go to Crestview,
Crestview,
then
and then over here to-
Cowpath.
All right, so we'll do some kind of carpooling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
None of us owns a smart car.
All right. Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
David Bixler moved to adjourn. We have a second.
Second.
Barry seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We're done. It's 8:43.